You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. A new controversy is now brewing over a Netflix series. The controversy is around the so called misrepresentation of the actual events that happened during the hijacking of Indian Airlines flight IC814 way back in December 1999.
ये कहानी उन कभी न खत्म होने वाले 7 दिनों की है। ये कहानी हिंदुस्तान के सबसे लंबे हाईजैक की।
The allegation is that the filmmaker, the series maker, has tried to obfuscate certain facts, have not revealed the names of the terrorists, have done deliberate distortion, and therefore now the content head of Netflix, Monica Shergill, has been summoned by the Information Broadcasting Ministry. In fact, even as we speak, she's supposed to appear and heed these sermons and give an explanation on why these transgressions happened in the series IC814, the Kandahar hijack. It is based on a book written by the captain who was very much the helm of affairs, who was the pilot on that aircraft, and Srinjoy Chaudhary, who's a journalist, who's a foreign affairs journalist. So these two individuals had written this book based on which the series was made. It is on Netflix. It just released last Thursday, but it has now created a controversy around the representation of the actual event. So, what we have here today is Mr. Poonam Kaur, who was present in that aircraft. He was on board IC814 on that fateful day. Poonam Kaur, thank you so much for joining me here on Viewpoint. And let's
Thank you for
get it all
inviting me
from
on.
you.
Yeah.
Let's go first with your. I know it's a difficult memory. I know it is something that one takes time to even sort of process, and one gets scarred for life with something like this happening. I can just imagine. But whatever you would like to share about the audience, because the audience wants to know what you went through, especially after seeing the series. That much of the new generation who's watching it were not even born at that time. So let's first hear the sequence of events that happened from your perspective.
Okay, Afrida, thank you for having me on the show. Uh, Last night I was in Mirror Now, and I was very clear that I came on board to be on air because there is a narrative which is being propagated where the IB minister has got involved, calling the head of Netflix content to explain why the lie and giving a false information about what the names of the hijackers were, and particularly about these Hindu names like Shankar and Bhola.
Hmm.
And I guessed, what happened 20, it's not about guessing, it's about 25 years ago what happened was terrible. It was not terrible only for the people who were hijacked, it was an absolute shock. Uh, Also for the families, also for families of war heroes who have been killed or were killed before that by these terrorists, the consequences of releasing those terrorists. So there is a whole lot of consequences which have followed from that hijack. I don't want to particularly enter into those areas because those are subject to debate. What should have been done? What shouldn't have been done? I would like to start by saying that I watched the serial, one go, all the 6 episodes. And boy, after 25 years, wanting to see it was something that I wanted to see how the depiction was.
Hmm.
I'm aware that it was based on Captain Devi Sharan's and Srinjoy's book, but
Yes.
there's a huge deviation from the actual content of the book. I would like the viewers to know that
Okay.
barring showing Rupan Katyal being killed, which is the unfortunate killing of Rupan Katyal, what happened inside the cockpit, something that Captain Devi Sharan can clarify. But the rest of it is more drama, not as much
Hmm.
reality. The reality was far
Okay.
more terrorizing,
Hmm.
and it was absolute terror for 7.5 days. And I think the serial makers should have concentrated a lot more on showing that aspect of the hijack than to concentrate on the back end administrative management with big names like Nasiruddin Shah and Pankaj Kapoor. And I, I think the serial failed there.
Okay.
And it was very hard to qualify.
Let me get this right. You are saying the serial failed in showing the plight of the passengers, the actual plight
Yes,
of the passengers. The
yeah,
focus
because
was more on the backroom dealings,
backroom
and much of it
dealing,
is
yeah,
dramatized. Yeah.
yeah, and the politics associated with that,
Hmm.
and a bit of whitewashing, but you can't walk away from the truth that
Hmm.
there was complete intelligence failure, response by the strike counter teams. That Captain Devisharan very bravely had the flight, had warned prior to arriving Lucknow's airspace,
Hmm.
and everybody knew that the plane was hijacked. Everybody knew. I mean, it could be completely. You wouldn't have to guess that they wouldn't come to Delhi, and he did everything possible, and have it on air, and then 50 minutes in Amritsar, and whatever. There was a complete lack of intelligence prior to the happening, post happening, and whatever it was. So I don't want to enter that arena because I think why I'm mentioning it is because whatever is happening now regarding the names of those, and those were code names for those two
Hmm.
hijackers. There were five. So there was one called Chief. I guess there's no controversy about that, Chief. Then there was Doctor. I guess there's no controversy over the word Doctor because you cannot associate that with a
Yeah.
religion, caste, creed, nothing. And then there's
Yeah.
Burger, which is basically a
This
hamburger.
burger.
Hot dog.
Yes.
So you can't. But to focus now after 25 years on the code names, Bhola
Hmm.
and Shankar.
These two
And
names are creating a problem. The others are religiously
yeah, but
neutral, so that is fine. Only these two
that's fine.
names
Why are these
are a
names being
problem.
picked up? Why?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is the reason why I'm on air, because that the serial has not erred at all. That is what the
Hmm.
code names were.
Okay.
That is how they were being addressed. And if you see the entire series, the focus is not on Bhola and Shankar at all. The focus is on Chief and Doctor
Yes.
and Burger.
Yes.
It
Those are the
is
names because I just watched the
sporadically,
series and you
a
hear
couple
those
of
names.
times they have been referred, like Bhola
Yeah.
Kahe and all that. So why
Huh.
focus
You
on
hear
this? You
those
should
names
focus.
much more than Bhola and Shankar.
No, no,
You hear
hardly.
Burger
When
and Doctor a lot more.
and Chief.
Yeah.
Burger, Doctor, and Chief.
Chief, yeah, Chief as
Azhar
well.
Mahmood's brother.
Hmm.
I came on air is because I want everybody to know that that is how they gave code names. They were always masked in the serial. The faces are shown. They never showed their faces. I don't know about Captain Devisharan. Maybe they've shown the faces to him. But as far as the passengers are concerned, they never showed the faces. And at best, on the third day onwards, they would have the mask here so that they could breathe. Otherwise, they were finding it hard. They were not
Okay.
able to breathe. So they would just, for more than 48 hours or 3 days, they had it till here. So you could just see the eyes. And they never unmasked themselves.
So there is an
Now,
inaccuracy there. Over here, they do
yes,
unmask much,
I
much
guess,
more.
cinematically, whatever it is, maybe
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the whole aspect of drama, they had to show the faces or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
but they were just the eyes and under the nose here. I came on airs because I had to communicate to people that there was no distortion by the serial makers.
Okay, which is the question I was putting. Is this a creative representation or do you call it deliberate distortion? You're saying there is no deliberate distortion here
There
that
is
you
no, no,
see
no, excuse me, there
after
is no
being a
deliberate
first hand.
distortion, there is
Yeah,
no creative.
witness.
This is what it was. This
Hmm.
is what they were referred to as. Shankar, okay, let me explain to you so that you will understand. There were five of them. One
Hmm.
was obviously the brother, Chief
Hmm.
of Orana. He was a short, stocky, plumpy guy with glasses. Then there was this guy called Doctor, who was
Hmm.
from that madrasa or whatever, Harkatul Mujahideen,
Yeah.
hardcore terrorist. I mean, he would have had no problem in slaying anybody.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
was completely radicalized, completely radicalized. Now that's where the team separates. There were two guys, Berger, who was actually captain in charge,
Hmm.
and Shankar. Berger was senior to Shankar, he was a commander. Shankar was the foot soldier, again a commander. Extremely professional, completely calm. Doctor was not that calm at all. And this little guy called Bhola was a scrawny, thin guy, short guy. He was on the edge from the fourth day, cracking up. And Berger actually had to restrain him on the fifth day. Otherwise, he could have overreacted and killed somebody. Berger actually grabbed. So you
Was
had
it
two
true
sets.
that two of the passengers were grievously injured, were cut, in their throats in this manner that the series shows?
See, I didn't see
The
it
blood.
because we moved to the business class, and I
Hmm.
was sitting in business class when I boarded the flight.
Yeah.
Um, and then we were moved, and they were moved up ahead later. And it was a reaction to send a message, I guess, to whoever it was. So yeah, Rupin Kachal's throat was slit, and his body was dumped out in Dubai, and the other guy was
Were you
stabbed.
traveling with family or were you alone in the flight?
I was alone. I had my own business. I had my own office in Nepal and all that. So, and I was back on 31st night, and third I was in Mumbai, and seventh I was back in Nepal.
Okay.
I had work, and I
Hmm.
had people who had a lot of goods ready for exports, and I could not go. I had to
You did
clear them.
not take time to recover from it. You're saying you had no choice. You had to get back to work.
No, I decided to be on the go. I didn't want the
Hmm.
fear to overtake me. There was extreme fear.
Hmm.
The first
Hmm.
24 hours to 36 hours
Yeah.
is terrifying. You're in shock. Everybody in shock.
Hmm.
There was a lot of dramatization in the serial about that foreigner sitting next to the toilet, which was not true because I was there next to the toilet, and
Hmm.
all that. And there was a lot more. One of the reasons also was this that there were certain incidents which happened because the crew were from Hyderabad, but they were Bengali crews.
Hmm.
And they all spoke Bengali, and I'm a Bengali.
Hmm.
So they spoke to me. So I was aware of what was happening, and there was some planning done by the crew and the pilot, which did not fructify. But it was a very daring plan.
And you
But
were
anyway,
privy to it. You could hear it. You're saying you
I was
could.
told about it to
You
get
were
ready.
told about it. Okay.
I was
Okay.
told directly what to do.
Hmm.
But anyway, leaving that aside, where I would like to come down to is
Yeah.
this that uh, this whole nonsense about Bhola and Doctor is to give it a color, communal color.
Which you don't approve of. It's unnecessary. You're saying.
Nobody should approve of that because,
Yeah.
see,
Absolutely.
as far as the series is concerned, let's say the
Hmm.
series is concerned, they have clearly identified who those terrorists were or are. They must be still living.
Yes. Yes. As a
And
viewer, I was never misled. I mean, as a viewer, I knew these are like
yeah, exactly, they had
radicalized
the
terrorists.
names, they had the
Their
clips, they had the
names, yes,
associations,
their background
everything.
was made very apparent. So nobody
Very
is
apparent.
confused about,
I would like
what religion
everybody
they
to
are from.
know
Yeah.
that out of the five, one was called constantly by the none of us called him Shankar. We didn't dare.
Hmm.
They were calling him Shankar
Okay.
amongst themselves, the communication. And Burger was Burger. A Burger was Burger, Chief
But
was
do you
Chief, Doctor
agree
was
there was an
Doctor,
attempt to
and
humanize the terrorists? One of the allegation is कि इनको humanize करने की कोशिश चल रही है. जैसे
हाँ,
एक
बिल्कुल.
dialogue है जो मैंने सुना where the passenger is asking what exactly do you want, and the passenger says हमें घर जाना है, we want to go home, and the terrorist says that's what we want, हमें भी घर जाना है. So these things are creating an impression कि उनको इतना टेररिस्ट माइंडसेट को इतना वाइट वॉश क्यों करा, मतलब व्हाई डिड यू ह्यूमनाइज देम, डू यू
Then talk about
अप्रूव?
no, no. Look, the question is this: that if you have to know that you, as responsible people of a political party and the minister, you can't nitpick on
on these things, yeah.
responsible elements 25 years later. Look into the intelligence failure. You created an entire narrative about this whole surveillance going on in Nepal. I was in Nepal. I had a house office, big business. There was no news of that in Nepal. The flight was delayed for 2.5 hours. I decided 2 times to go back, but I was coming into Delhi for only one reason, though I had so much of work, is because it was Christmas Eve, and I wanted to celebrate the Christmas Eve with my children.
Okay.
2 times I called my exporter friend to come and pick me up. I called Raju and I said, Raju, pick me up because it's getting too late. And I don't think I can go. And the flight was 2.5 hours late in taking off because IC814 came in so late. My point is this, that the serial, first, I started off saying, now, you made a serial after 25 years. Uh, I know the details, so maybe I can find a lot of flaws. Somebody who has not.
But you are saying
it's
those
drama.
inaccuracies are not relevant. You are saying some amount of creative liberty is being taken.
And
which is visible to you, but to the viewer, we may not be
Yeah,
aware of the
I
exact
yeah,
circumstances.
they should have worked on what was happening inside the aircraft a lot more.
Okay.
They should have worked on. There was various factual inaccuracies also.
But not
They
of the
missed.
consequence which is being pointed out, because यहाँ पे
No,
बोला जा रहा है कि this
there
is
was
anti-India.
yeah,
This is
inside the
trying to project the NDA government in poor light. How do you
excuse
respond to
me.
that? It is being
Okay,
said that the Vajpayee government of those days are being, but
we
you are
talk
also
about
saying that
that.
intelligence failure tha, and so
No, no.
somewhere are you sensing an agenda there to expose the government of the day of those times?
Okay, I need to have my say on this.
Hmm.
My problem is this: that if you want to strike that, strike that. Don't question the facts as it happened inside the aircraft, and which have no value. That no Indian was involved. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh. No Indian was involved. It was abundantly clear that Pakistanis were involved. The government of India took a long time to figure out the identities after the incident happened.
Yeah.
That is also on record. It is on record that there was no intelligence input about this happening. Otherwise, we would have known
Yeah.
many years ago.
Hmm.
It was abundantly clear at that time that when the flight was in Indian airspace, the Central Commando team did not arrive for whatever reasons. I'm not privy to that information. And though Captain Devi Sharan created an entire ground, it took nearly 1 hour, 50 minutes. And you still don't have a team to stop it. I am aware of the fact that when we landed in Amritsar, it was a very hard landing, extremely hard landing, and I was terrorized at that. And that aircraft was just zooming around, circling and circling. It was not circling like slowly; it was like really fast. It was just circling. Even then, they got the Bowser to block it, and they were maybe waiting for the commandos to come in and go ahead. So I don't know about that.
So
But
you are saying the controversy around whether the captain could have stayed longer in Amritsar, that the series is being fair in showing that the captain did the
absolutely, come
best in
on,
his capacity. The series is
he
being fair to the captain's decision.
absolutely
Okay.
he informed he had the information about the hijack. We were hijacked within maybe 15-20 minutes of taking off. I was in seat 2B. I had my laptop open, and Berger, later on I figured that it was Berger because he was all masked. And he came out and he struck me with a pistol on my head and said, "Heads down." And within maybe 5 minutes, everybody moved back. And then they had grenades in their hand with pins out, and 2 grenades with the held, so that if anybody is knocked, the grenade would just go off at 30,000 feet. And they had knives and they had 2 pistols. So it is not that, Nepal airport security people, somebody allowed this to come into the cabin. Anyway, I'm not going to walk that. I'm going to come to the fact that this whole uproar, for whatever reasons, if you feel that there was no intelligence failure, if you are convinced that there was no administrative lapse in handling the hijack, then fight for it. Call the serial makers for all the things, but don't come on an issue which is actually polarizing.
All right, fair enough. But even that is a
Everybody should.
problem because it's Anubhav Sinha. He's made movies prior to this also. Even Bheed was controversial, which he
I'm not
made
aware of his movies. I don't watch
or
movies.
Article 50. So basically, what is being said is that here is a left wing perspective of things, and the idea is to expose the NDA government of those times that they did not act in right earnest. The things that you are saying, the question that is being put now is that why rake that up now? This is a deliberate agenda to malign the NDA government of those times. So therefore, it's a left wing agenda. That is one argument. How would you respond to that?
I will respond. I'll again come back to one. How can you connect dots? What was the serial maker supposed to do? Change their names to Aftab and Salim? When they were being called Burger and Shankar?
Yeah. Yeah.
what was the serial maker supposed to do when he did actually a lot of whitewashing? Not to show in too bad a light the administration then. And I'm not going to say NDA, UPA, no, I don't want to walk the politics. The administration, they failed. Maybe there was the
It
first
did
time,
fail,
shock. Yeah, they failed. Everybody knows. The response was slow.
Where is the major failure? You think the major failure was the part where in Amritsar, where they could have taken action, they failed within that time frame? Is that the major failure, you would say? Or prior to that, how did these, because there was a call that said that suspicious
Yeah.
people are entering the flight, that was also not paid heed to, as the series shows. I don't know the actual events, what it was
Yeah, the
like.
series shows it. But I would also like to make clear that the series has tried to do a balancing act
Okay.
of not to pin the administration at that time into the ground.
Oh, that's interesting, because then you are saying just the opposite. You're saying rather
Yeah,
than
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to
No.
implicate,
They had to.
they're trying to soften the blow.
No. They were very kind to the administration at that time. And listen, I am not purview to what was happening behind or the pre-intelligence. I'm not. I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm not going to comment on it. But the fact is this: that after being released, all these years, and even then, there was no reporting about it. That there was a pre-intelligence and this and that. There was nothing. You guys go back into the records. It was 25 years ago. Go back into the records to see, was there a reporting to say that there was surveillance in Nepal, there was pre-warning, nothing.
So interesting. You're saying that if there was any whitewashing, it was actually the whitewashing of the failures, not whitewashing of the terrorists and their agendas. Because the allegation is the terrorists are being whitewashed, the ISI is being whitewashed. And you are taking a
Okay,
different take on it.
Afrida, let me put it this way to everybody so that everybody understands this. You have seen many hijack movies where there's a hero who takes down 100 people. There's a commando who will shoot 5 people with the same bullet. You have Richard Branson, those kind of things. There are many, many hijack movies. This serial is not based on that. It is not a complete act of fiction where you show a hero, a happening. The terrorists are all those, menacing looking guys, striking away, killing. Anubhav Sinha and the serial makers try to show a real incident as it happened. Now, I know where the problem is with the people out here. It's showing that Antakshari incident. That's what I gathered. Yeah, last night I gathered. You're not showing that Antakshari. Burger's communication, soft communication. That somebody gets slapped, the crew gets slapped. That didn't happen in front of me, seriously speaking. That was dramatized. But getting slapped and he going and picking her up to say, "Hum bhi ghar jana chahte hain," and all that. Captain Devi Sharan is in the book to say that when Burger was leaving, he came and hugged Captain Devi Sharan and said, "I'm sorry for what happened." It's in the book, in Shinja's book. And it's not only in that book, this is somebody else also wrote the book at that time. It is there in that book. You have to understand.
So it is not the filmmaker who has taken a prerogative to humanize it. You're saying this is what actually happened, and Captain Devi Sharan's account also corroborates it. So it is not like Anubhav Sinha has decided to humanize the terrorists. That's what you're saying, I imagine.
No, he has not. And in fact, has he humanized them completely? No. He shows how nonchalantly doctor slits the throat of Rupin Kachal.
Yeah, absolutely.
He shows how the Shankar stabs the other guy because he's ordered to do. He shows how Burger just throws the body on the, whatever you call that, which comes to the door of the aircraft. Door of the aircraft, and he just dumps and says, "Ye to mar gaya." Coolly. You think they're humans? But are they supposed to be, be one of those slitty-eyed, terrorists, who are constantly giving bhashan in some Islamic quotes and all that constantly and muttering? He made a real life serial as it happened. And he tried to balance. He was not taking any position.
Which is what is also being said, that if you are making a series based on real life events, then you cannot meddle with the facts.
No, he has.
Even a senior minister in the current government is saying that this is criminal to distort facts, because there's IB involved, there's raw involved. You cannot even, sort of take those liberties here, because you
I
are
understand.
actually going with a true event. So then
I would
you
like
have
to,
to maintain accuracy, is what the current government is saying. Why
I would like,
the content
I
head
would
has
like
been
to
summoned is for those reasons.
ask, I would like to ask the minister, who's an extremely educated person, soft-spoken, professional, very capable. Why make so much of hula hula about Shankar and Bhola? There was no distortion there. There was actually no distortion. I'm not the only one to say it. Ask anybody who was on the flight. Anybody. I can have them reach out to my friends who migrated to the US, who were sitting with me in the hijacked plane. Reach out to them. His wife refused to deboard at Dubai without leaving her husband.
Hmm.
Why? So, if you want to defend the then NDA government, it was good, whatever the government, then question them on that. But the headline news, even today, Times of India carries this front page thing about IB minister. This is,
Code names are
sorry,
being,
nonsensical.
yes.
This is not, no, this is about, my
They've
problem
made
is
it
whatever
about Hindu
diversion you
code
want.
names. They've made it about Hindu code names, which
Yeah.
has angered, because these are Muslim terrorists. Why did you have the Hindu code names? You are saying that those were the names used. So
But,
what is the
but
filmmaker supposed to do? How would
what is the
anybody
film?
think that this would become a controversy? One would
Yeah.
not
And
imagine
then it,
actually that there is, yeah, a
have you
sensitivity
seen, have you
around
seen,
this as
have
well.
you seen the serial
Yes,
completely?
I have. I have. I have.
Can you recount how many times Shankar and Bhola's name are called out?
No, I remember Burger and Doctor and Chief more than Bhola and
Seriously,
Shankar.
I don't even. I mean, I have to
Yeah.
re-see it to
Hmm.
actually pinpoint where these names were called out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was so insignificant. So the intent is not that. The intent is to pin them down
Hmm.
and everybody around to make a big story out of it
Hmm. Hmm.
as a diversion. But my problem is this: that do whatever you want to do, but don't polarize.
Yeah,
They were
that
not
is
in.
one part of it. The other part of it is where you bring in raw and IB and you show their inefficiencies, so that the government of the day is not comfortable with. Because, when you are actually talking about institutions, there is a fine line. And, even creative liberties will have certain boundaries that are to be followed, perhaps. We are yet to find out what the Netflix content head is presenting, or responding, how it is responding to the contentious aspects that are being pointed out. But do you feel that raw IB, their functioning, has been shown in a way which shows them in poor light in the series?
First, I want to ask you a question.
Hmm.
You said about there's a fine line.
Hmm.
Are we a free nation democracy or we are a banana republic? That
Hmm.
we have to follow the line set by the
No, no, that's what
administration.
the government is saying. Yeah, that's what the government is saying, that when you're touching
No,
these
I have
institutions,
asked you. I
be
have
very
asked you.
careful.
I have
Yeah,
asked you a counter question,
yeah.
and that's where my answer lies.
Hmm.
That I'm not going to walk that path because I
Hmm.
disagree with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not left leaning, right leaning. Let's call it I'm a liberal, and I'm an agnostic. So I believe in God, but I'm agnostic. But leaving that aside, don't peg yourself on that. Question: if they had factual inaccuracies about IB raw, come out with it. Have a counter narration about it. Absolutely question them that how could you show us in poor light when this did not happen?
Okay,
And
that is what is
incidentally,
happening. So you're saying that is fair to have the Netflix content head summoned for those questions? This part of it
can
you're
I,
saying is fair on the part of the government to question
no,
the
I am
content head?
saying that if you go to that extreme, I'm not going to
Hmm.
define what rules and regulations of the IB ministry should be. So I'm not going to walk that path on that particular thing. But The issue is this, that at that time, whether it is the captain, all the survivors, families, it was abundantly clear to everybody that there was a complete intelligence failure to preempt it. There were gaping holes in the response of very quick commando action when the plane was in our airspace for 2 hours, more than 2 hours. Why that did not happen? Well, I'm not purview to different situations, so I'm not going to comment on it. But has the serial shown anything that is completely the opposite? See, there is a creative, there has to be some allowance for creative narration. You have a baseline thing, and as far as the serial is concerned, yes, they have shown the intelligence bungling, but they have shown also how efficiently the negotiations were handled, how the then prime minister and the foreign minister leveraged their position under extremely adverse conditions against various foreign powers who were not very helpful to get the best deal. How, in spite of everything else, the entire negotiating team were dealing with Muqtawil and the Taliban, and how they negotiated the whole deal without paying money, and with whittle it down from 35 and $200 million to wherever it was. They also show that how the then administration was under tremendous pressure, media and public. It shows Pankaj Kapoor representing, I mean, obviously he was acting the role of Jaswant Singh Ji, that how human he was, because when he says that if I have to save one life, I have to save one life, you know. So it is not easy. You know, you can sit on the outside and make a judgment. So it is, even for an administration, when you're faced with a situation like this, it's not easy.
Absolutely. It's walking a tightrope, and
Yeah. And there, I think Anubhav Sinha did whatever he could to balance it out. The initial reaction was completely bungled up for whatever reasons. And then it was as best that it could be handled, it was handled. I will leave it at that.
yes, and also because it comes from the account of the captain. I mean, like I said in the opening, this is based on the book written by Captain Devi Sharan and Srinjoy Chaudhary, who was my former colleague in Times Now. So I imagine that this is based on an account of someone who was there at the helm of affairs. So I think that is also a good enough disclaimer. I would feel like it is not something that is entirely being imagined by the filmmaker. It is based on something of a written account. But in conclusion, Mr. Kaur, I want to know from you that having been through all of this, somewhere, did you realize, or did it strike you that to save your life and so many others, 3 terrorists had to be released, the country had to go through this bargain? Have you started valuing your life more, or have you, I mean, what was your thought when you realized the magnitude of the situation to have you out of there, you and the others, I mean, and when you actually managed to get out of the situation, what were your thoughts?
Okay, then I would like to come on air and narrate an incident that was there in the aircraft, that happened in the aircraft, which is not shown in the series.
Okay.
As I said, the crew were from Hyderabad with Bengalis. This was Tuesday night or Wednesday night. We got to know in the morning on Tuesday that the talks had broken down completely, because they came in, Berger and Doctor. Berger spoke to say that talks have broken down and we're going to start shooting. Then there was a huge emotion about Taliban all around. So there was like extremely, I mean, it was like every hour something would happen. Then there would be like 2 hours of lull and then something again. I think it was Wednesday night. If you want to know, it was communicated to me very clearly in Bengali that they're going to kill us all.
Oh my God. I can't imagine what you must have
This
felt.
communication started at 5 o'clock in the evening. I was served water, and she told me in Bengali that, and I'll say it, she says, "Amra to shobai morbo, amra kichu bachbo na." That means we'll all die. Some will survive, some will not survive. There are guns outside, there are guns inside. we are going to, and I am saying this, and I guess the crew members, two of them who spoke to me, they will know that I'm speaking the truth. There is a mid section door where you open it, the slide opens
Yeah.
out. That's the
Yeah.
chute. At 8 o'clock, it was fixed because by that day, the hijacker security was staying around the business class, and I guess they were a little in the shock that the talks had broken down or the negotiations were already started again. I don't know. I'm not privy to them. And so there was a whole plan in place that hit the ground. They would open at 8 o'clock. She said to me, she says, I'll get shot. But you grab two hands, each of you. And I'm telling you in Bengali so that you communicate to around you, the ones that you trust. Grab the hands and run. And the Kandahar airport at that time was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was Rocky Mountains around. Nothing.
Mm.
Hit the ground and run in the dark because they're going to be shooting you from inside, they're going to be shooting you from outside. If you survive, you survive. If you don't survive, that's it.
Mm.
It was all in
In
place.
fact, this is also represented in certain other movies prior to this, in Nirja and in another movie called Hijack.
Doesn't matter.
Those were far more fictionalized, I believe, and also
No, this was true. And there was a foreigner who was a VIP with his girlfriend in the flight of extreme eminence. I don't want to take his name. The government of India knew he was there.
Yeah.
And the foreign country knew. He was extremely high profile. And if the terrorists were so well informed by ISI and Pakistan embassy, they would have known. If the terrorists were so well organized and completely planning it for so many months, they would have known the first officer in an embassy was on the flight. But they did not. So that their intelligence was not as refined. And they never got to know. And he came across to me, guys, I don't know how he got to know. He didn't speak a word of English. I mean, he knew only a little bit of English. I don't want to take his nationality so that people know the name of his nationality. And he came and told me that, look, I'm not going to survive. Because they had moved the foreigner males next to the left wing, where the fuel tank is. Their thing was this: if there is any act of trying to rescue, they would throw a grenade there and put the whole thing on flames, the fuel tank on fire, and kill all the foreigners, the males. And his girlfriend was sitting in the back with me. And he says, grab a hand. And he actually let me know how to escape, how to hit the floor, how to crawl, when to run. Everything was done. And then till 7, it was edgy because, I don't know, but something happened at 7:30, close to 7:30. And these guys were on high alert. They all the 4 moved back. So that did not go through. Why I have brought this subject up now is this because of that question of yours. And what you're asking me is that, do I have guilt? Plain and simple. There was a point where I think a hell of a lot of us thought that we'll never survive this. So make a dash. Ordinary human beings, we are not commandos.
True.
My friends who were in the US, they were just ordinary couples. Another young couple, this girlfriend of this VIP person from abroad. I had to calm her down, and I had to constantly clutch her hand to say that don't react.
So you were able to communicate amongst yourselves. That much was
you were able to
not
communicate
shown as much, but you're saying you were
constantly
supporting
there.
each other.
Yeah. So, but the point is this: that about the guilt. Yes, there was guilt after getting released. But why I said that I was flying within 5-6 days? Because I had work to do. The lives of other people were dependent on that. And I carried on with it. And as much I have sympathy for the administration then also, because when you're faced with a situation, you're not always ready for something, as much as we were not ready for this. The political establishment was not ready for this. So you try to do the best of what it was. Am I relieved to be alive? Obviously. Who wants to die? The people who raised
But with
these
such
questions,
a close brush with death, very few people today can claim to have that sort of a
Yeah,
close
that's my
brush
point. That's
with
my
them.
point. That people who are in
It
position
must
of
have
power.
given you an altogether
Yeah.
new perspective on life.
Uh, can I say something honestly to everybody?
Yeah.
Life is much larger than an
Hmm.
incident. You have your psyche starts
Hmm.
accepting, and then life carries on. Some friends, a friend of mine told me that I guess you will not watch the series. I said no, I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to watch it to see about the accuracy and the projections. I'm going to watch it, and I watched it non-stop. I started at
Yeah.
7 till it did not finish,
And you
episode
didn't
after
feel
episode.
at any point of time like switching it off because it was coming back to you or the memories were flooding back. There was no such moment that you resented it or you got terrified or whatever, because of the
Do you know what
memories
this?
that would have
Okay,
come.
this is something I will address to Mr. Anubhav Sinha. Why I
Uh-huh.
said he failed in making the right kind of thing, because he did not project or he did not dramatize those
Hmm.
terrorizing aspects. To
Okay.
show a crew member vomiting or trying to clean the toilet was very trivial compared to what actually happened. Let's say I will bring it up now that either it was Tuesday or no, it was Tuesday. Somebody was brought inside the aircraft to see. There was absolute terror. Absolute terror. Somebody very big and very tall and thin, wearing a white robe, was brought inside the aircraft. And before he arrived, do you know how the Afghans cheer?
Hmm.
That eerie
Wow.
silence outside, it was there. And 10 minutes before that, the hijackers with the daggers and everything out were just slapping everyone. Keep your head down means keep your head down. If it even moves a millimeter, they were just coming down with full force on the head and the body.
Were you in any way injured? Were you physically
No,
fine after you came out?
no,
Okay.
I wasn't. Nobody else was injured.
All
But
right.
you asked me a question that were they humans? No, this is what I'm saying. That
Hmm.
they would have slashed at that time if anybody defied them. Captain Davy Sharon would knows that they were ready to have. They were rigging the. They had the plane rigged. So if they didn't get their way, they would have blown up the plane. That is known. That's a known fact. So do I appreciate life after that? Yes, I appreciate it a lot, and many changes happened in my life after that. But then it was 25 years ago,
Yeah. So
and
you
I
are
was
healed. You are completely healed today. The wounds have not been revived by the series as such. It's just a reflection, and it didn't. And from what you say, I imagine
two,
that it's way
two
too back,
scenes. No,
too
no,
far back now.
two scenes made me feel very guilty
Okay,
again, and
please
that
tell us.
was not good. Not good when I saw it. I don't want to talk about those two scenes. There were two
Okay,
scenes.
all right. Okay,
That was it,
there were moments. There were
it brought
moments that
back
brought
bad
back.
memory,
Okay,
bad memories.
okay,
But
fine.
I would like this interview to conclude by saying that people in power need to be responsible and mature. Maturity
Yeah.
has its own quality, and being responsible. That means you can't be responsible and be mature, and you can't be mature and be responsible. You have to be both.
Yeah. I think what
And
my takeaway was, oh, yeah, please finish. Then I'll say my
I think this
concluding
happening
statements.
about Shankar and Poola
Hmm.
is not being mature and being highly irresponsible.
I get that. Yeah. No, I mean, I
And
was
this
saying
has to
that the
stop.
bureaucratic delays that are being shown and without realizing the sort of impact, on one hand, you see what is going on there. As a viewer, now you have both the things playing out in front of you, but nobody would have that advantage at that time, right? Like, as a viewer, now we can see what is going on in the back room
Yeah, I
and
didn't know. I was
see
inside
what
the
is going
aircraft,
on.
so I didn't know what was
Yeah,
going happening
exactly,
outside.
exactly. So now when you see that, you realize, why are they not acting on it? What is taking so long? I mean, there are lives at stake, and look at the situation there. And here, there are tea and samosas being served. That moment, I was like, oh my God, these are moments where people in power
No,
have
that is
to
not a question
act.
today. That was a
Hmm.
that was a question inside the aircraft which I would like the IB minister to know, and the people of this country to know. And it was not mine. Do you know when
Yeah.
you're terrorized for 48 hours, your body starts accepting, and then you
Yeah.
come to a state of surrender,
Yeah.
and then it becomes unacceptable after 72 hours that you're confined to 1 foot by 1 foot and terrorized constantly every hour, every 2 hours, and then you have to blame somebody. Now you have two options at that time: either you get up, throw yourself at them, and die, or you get angry. When people landed at the Delhi airport, they showed the serial shows one clip of a passenger who's very angry.
Yeah.
They could have shown much more. We were angry, and we were not angry about the happening. We were angry about the fact that more than preempting it, we were angry about, not me, whole lot of us, most of us, that why wasn't an action taken in Amritsar? Maybe a lot of us would have died, but it would have not been such terror-filled days of 7.5 days. Not knowing, sometimes you feel you're
No,
going to
but
be
the
alive.
idea was to save lives. I don't think, one
No, no,
can get
no.
away
Please
with
try to
the
understand.
argument. Yeah.
For us, we didn't know what was going on outside or the
Yeah,
safety.
exactly. Yeah.
But for us, after 72 hours, the body gives up. The loose can't be used. You can't eat. You can't drink. And you have a situation where, yeah, it's kind of a thing that you have to blame somebody. You blame them,
Yeah. Hmm.
and you blame somebody who did not protect you. And
Yeah.
it comes down to the fact that why was then, and it was a feeling inside the aircraft. I'm not the only one. Ask other hijacked passengers that why wasn't the plane stopped in Amritsar?
Yeah.
No,
I think,
somebody is
yeah, I think
responsible
that
for that. That's
question,
not me.
right.
That's not the
Now,
captain.
that question, I think we only have the answer from the perspective of Captain Devi Sharan, since this is his account. And so we will have to, of course, put that out loud and clear that this is actually
No,
from
but
his perspective.
Captain Devi Sharan cannot have that perspective entirely. Is because he was inside the aircraft. He was there to
No,
save
no, the
lives.
series is based on his book.
I know
So the
that,
way
but please
he
try to understand something.
justifies why he couldn't stay longer in Amritsar is his account, at least in this book. And if the series is based on the book, I'm saying from that angle.
Do you know when the aircraft took off from Amritsar?
Hmm.
It was the worst takeoff I've ever seen in my life, ever felt in my life. It was a huge jerk,
All of
and
that
you
is
can
shown very
imagine.
dramatically. That you
No,
must
no,
have,
excuse me, you don't know.
it was
Ask
shown.
Captain Devi Sharan. He missed
Hmm.
the boundary wall of Amritsar Airport by a couple of foot.
Yeah,
The climb. So Captain Devi Sharan did what he had to do,
yeah.
and very bravely. There is another thing which was not shown in the serial, which he will corroborate, that he made the aircraft immobile in Kandahar. He did
Okay.
something there while
Hmm.
landing so that it couldn't take off again. It's not shown in the serial, but that is the truth.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. That's an
So,
interesting trivia.
yeah,
Right.
so
I'm sure we can go on for another couple of hours because this is one of those things where we would like to also know uh, all the nuances, all the things that went into your mind. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for in this episode. Thank you so much, Mr. Poonam Kaur, for someone like you who has seen death up close and personal, has come out stronger, I imagine. I really appreciate your sharing your views with us. Any last word you want to leave our viewers with about life in general from somebody who's had a very close brush with death? Concluding
I would
remarks
like
from
everybody to see the serial if they want to.
Okay.
If they don't want to, please don't see it.
Hmm.
But leave out an opinion being narrated. Don't get involved. Bhola and Shankar, that is what their code names were, will always be, and truth cannot be changed.
Interesting. So you're saying don't attribute these malified intentions, things did happen, and what is being represented is largely what did happen. Yes, you've also pointed out where you
Inside the aircraft.
found some
Inside the aircraft.
inaccuracies. Yeah,
Inside the
and you
aircraft. I can only talk
inside
about what happened inside the aircraft.
out. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there
No,
was
I
no
take that point.
inaccuracy.
Fair enough. You were there as a witness inside the aircraft, so whatever you have spoken is from that perspective. Thank you so much, Mr. Poonamkar. All the best.
Thank you,
Have a
Afrida.
nice day.